Hi and welcome to today's live reading from Mountains Loved by Phoebe Alexander, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Homecoming. 6 inches. That was about how much was left on her measuring tape of patience. People had been wearing on her last nerve this entire trip. I swear the next person who bumps into me won't live to regret it. She couldn't wait to see him. Sarah hurried down the long corridor, weaving in and out of slower traffic and opting to forgo the people movers on her way out of the terminal. She dragged her navy blue wheeled suitcase behind her, its lime green satin ribbon waving like a flag as she flew past. She liked being able to identify quickly her bag from amongst the hordes of similarly dark luggage. She liked to stand out from the crowd in other ways as well. She turned the corner as she exited under the ground transportation signs and proceeded to walk directly into his arms. His strong muscles squeezed as he pressed her to his firm body. Seconds later, she pulled back to take in his soulful blue eyes and trademark smirk. "James!" She locked her dark eyes onto his blue ones. "I thought I was supposed to meet you at the car." "I just couldn't wait to kiss you," he grinned, bending down to brush his lips against hers. "A week is too long to be apart." 2 years ago, her husband was deployed to Afghanistan for 9 months. A week seemed like nothing compared to that. Maybe it always felt longer for the ones left at home than the ones who went away. "Are the kids okay?" Sarah nodded. "Abby is settling into dorm life and is ready for classes to start on Monday. Owen is already teaching his little brother all sorts of things. I'm a little worried he won't want to come home next week." "Well, he's coming home to start 8th grade," James pointed out. "I wouldn't take it personally if he's less than thrilled. You know how teenagers are." "True," she frowned, hating to think of her little guy as a teenager. But he was. Then she brightened. "Did it occur to you that we have exactly one childless week together? We could live it up and go totally crazy. What do you want to do first?" James didn't hesitate. "Well, getting you home and naked is at the very top of my agenda." "I was hoping you'd say that." Sarah linked her arm through her husband's and followed him to the car. Some days she could hardly believe that he was hers. After an undeniably rocky beginning, somehow it had all worked out. It all worked out for the best. She gave James's formidable bicep a firm squeeze as they reached their SUV. He has the sexiest arms. Damn, I missed having those babies around me. He opened the door for her, but wouldn't allow her to climb in unless he gave her a proper kiss. Her desire for him was reignited as soon as his lips made contact with hers. "Even after all this time, he still has that effect on me." James held to his promise of ravishing Sarah as soon as they crossed the threshold of their home. He left a trail of their clothes leading up to the staircase and down the hall to their bedroom. A bra strewn on the carpet in front of the bathroom, panties right inside the bedroom door. Foreplay consisted of simultaneous groping and fondling as they scrambled up the stairs. James was ready to slide his eager cock into his wife's equally eager pussy as soon as she made herself horizontal on the bed. The walls of her sex guthed with desire, and as soon as it reached its depth, she'd been waiting for the reunion for a week, and it was proving worth the wait. James had just managed about 6 thrusts when a familiar voice called from the foyer. "Sarah, Sarah, are you home?" "Shit, it's my mum." Sarah sighed breathlessly, her well-conditioned muscles still clenched around her husband's cock, the irony of being caught in the act by her mother not escaping her. James stopped. "Are you sure it's not Rachel? She can come up and join in if she wants." He was clearly determined to resume their activities, even if he had to take one for the team and add his wife's best friend to the mix. "Damn it," Sarah groaned as she heard footsteps plodding up the stairs. James slid out of Sarah and into his boxers, which had been tossed on the floor beside the bed. Sarah wrapped the sheet around her just in time to see the silvery grey head of her mother, Kathy Lind, poke into the doorway from the hall. Unlike most mothers who catch their daughters in the act, Kathy simply offered up a glittering tale of laughter as she headed back down the stairs. "Forget I'm here. Just come down when you're ready." she sang between the peals of laughter. Sarah glanced over at James, who had already added a pair of shorts and a t-shirt over the boxers, concealing all her favourite body parts. His brows furrowed as his shirt fell down around his hips. "Well, aren't you going to get dressed?" "She said when we're ready. We could finish first," Sarah suggested with a shrug as she climbed off the bed. "You want me to fuck you while your mum waits downstairs?" he said incredulously. "Seriously, that's fucked up, Sarah." "I don't want you to fuck me," she corrected him. "I want you to make love to me." She understands. She knows we haven't seen each other in a while. "I think the shop is closed," James sighed, looking down at the place where his impressive erection had been moments before the interruption. "All right." Disappointment huff out of her as she threw on her nightie that was smattered with tiny pink rosebuds and edged in lace. She witnessed her husband's expression perk when his eyes trailed over the outline of her nipples protruding through the flimsy fabric. When she raised her brows in hope he changed his mind, he shook his head emphatically. Sarah was not the least bit self-conscious around anyone, and that included her mother. She bounded down the stairs and found Kathy Lynn stirring creamer into her coffee. "Sorry, dear," the older woman apologised. "I guess I didn't realise you two would be in bed. I'm so sorry I interrupted your lovemaking." Her deep brown eyes twinkled when she said the word lovemaking. Sarah was pretty sure James would fall over from embarrassment. Sarah's mother and her mother-in-law, Mrs. McAllister, could not have been any more different. Mrs. McAllister was a conservative Catholic woman who revered all things traditional. For her, marriage was a sacred bond between man and his wife, the former being the head of the household. Marriage meant monogamy and eternity, till death do us part, etc. Sarah used to wish that she was wired for conventional relationships, but after her first marriage failed, she realised convention was not for her. Her heart was too big to limit herself to loving only one person. When they first met, James was as traditional and conservative as his parents, until he found himself caught in a love triangle and discovered his capacity for loving more than one woman. Several months after meeting Sarah, James proposed to his former high school sweetheart, Maggie Carson. But despite his intention to marry Maggie, and despite being employed and separated from Sarah in Afghanistan, he couldn't deny his strong feelings for the beautiful sociology professor who had started out as his friends with benefit. Maggie matched his concept of an ideal wife. She was his age, hailed from his hometown, and was Catholic. Sarah was older, had children, and was anything but traditional. But none of that mattered once he was able to admit the connection he felt with Sarah transcended their differences. Sarah threw her arm around her daughter and kissed her cheek affectionately. "How are my babies?" "I'm a little worried about Abby," Sarah admitted, "but Owen is fine. Not sure he's going to want to come home next week. He and his little brother are two peas in a pod." "Why are you worried about my Abigail?" Her mother's eyebrow rose quizzically. "Well, she looked less than thrilled when she met her roommate. And she's just not as outgoing or social as I remember being when I was her age. I guess the introvert in her comes from her dad." "You really weren't that outgoing either," Kathy reminded her daughter. "Maybe you don't remember it the way I do, but it took quite a bit to bring you out of your shell. Drama club helped when you were in high school. But I remember you feeling a little lost in the shuffle when you first got to college. You were lucky to connect with a group of friends pretty quickly, though." "She'll be fine," James interjected. "She has a good head on her shoulders, and she's not the kind of person to hang out with someone just so she wouldn't be lonely. She'll find some quality like-minded friends. It just might take her a little while to get settled in." "Of course you're both right," Sarah conceded. "I guess I'm just feeling so far away from her and powerless. There's nothing I hate more than feeling out of control." Kathy smiled, her eyes still twinkling. "Welcome to parenting an adult," she said in her soothing voice. "But don't worry, it gets easier, I promise." That night, after Kathy, Rachel, and Rachel's brood had gone home, Sarah collapsed into her husband's arms, completely exhausted. James stroked his fingertips from her thick dark hair across her shoulder and down to the curve of her hip. "Don't tell me you're too tired," he sighed, a slight hint of a plea in his deep, smooth voice. "I've been waiting for this moment all day." Sarah laughed softly. "I know, baby. I can muster up the energy for you, I promise." She shifted onto her back and began to pull him on top of her. His weight squeezed the air out of her lungs as she adjusted to accommodate his bulky frame. She ran her fingers across his muscular shoulders and down his bulging triceps. She had missed the feeling of his body pressing against her. It only took hours for her to crave him, and it had been an entire week. Who needs sleep when you can make love to your sexy as fuck hubby? His hungry mouth nibbled at her ear and made a trail of kisses down her neck. Despite her exhaustion, her body began to respond to his attention, as it always did, and always had. In mere seconds, the pressure of his stiff cock against her thigh had her pussy salivating for him. She parted her legs and guided him inside her pussy. The sound he made as the last of his thick 7 inches reached the depths of her was something between a moan and a sigh of contentment. It sent an explosion of tingles down her spine. If his cock could talk, I think it would have just said, "I'm home." She wrapped her legs around him, driving him deeper inside and rotating her hips so she could grind her clit into his pelvis. It doesn't matter how many times we do this, it always feels perfect. How can that be after thousands of times? After they both came, she nestled in the crook of his armpit, in her spot. His chest hair tickled her nose a little, but there was something so comforting and soothing about lying there that she didn't even mind the sensation. She debated breaking the silence that had enshrouded them as they both recovered from their efforts. "Amethyst sure is getting big," Sarah sighed, remembering the adorable way her best friend's baby girl toddled across the kitchen earlier that evening. "I know, she's really cute," James replied. "I love the way she calls you sis. It's so funny." "I think it's hard for little ones to say Sarah," she guessed, "but she sure seems to have your name down pat." His chest rose and fell a few more times, carrying her head with it. "Have you given any more thought to what the doctor said?" She bristled. She'd had an appointment with a fertility specialist shortly before leaving for Colorado. I wondered when he was going to bring that up. She'd given a lot of thought to what the doctor said while she was in Colorado. He'd advised James and Sarah that they had a choice between reattaching Sarah's fallopian tubes to try for a natural conception and doing in vitro fertilisation. The former meant recovering from surgery, then leaving it up to nature. IVF might afford them a quicker turnaround, particularly if it was successful in the first round. Plus, the embryos would be tested to ensure they were genetically viable before transfer, a plus due to Sarah's age. It wasn't the choice between the two options that had Sarah flummoxed. It was a choice of whether or not to become a parent again. She had promised James over a year ago. No, I promised him over 2 years ago, on our camping trip to Assateague, that I would have his baby if that's what he wanted. But now the time had come to make good on her promise. She was 39 years old, and the window for becoming a mother again was closing a little more each year. She loved her children, and she loved being a mother. But when she looked at them, growing up, becoming the humans they were meant to be, she couldn't help but appreciate how independent they were now. She hadn't forgotten how much work a newborn was, and a toddler. Did she have the requisite energy at 39 to chase after an active baby and teach college classes full time? She flashed back to the photos she'd seen 2 years ago of James holding his newborn niece. How precious and sweet that tiny pink bundle looked in his strong arms. But how could I deny him this experience? How could I look into his eyes and tell him that I don't want to fulfill his dream of fatherhood, especially when I promised to him I would do everything in my power to make it happen? I can't deny him. It's that simple. I've never been able to deny him anything, in fact.